Hi, everybody. I am so excited about today's webinar, but I'm even more excited about today's presenter. And let me tell you why. So many years ago, when I started out in the amazing profession of chiropractic, I was sent to New York. It was one of my first events to attend it by myself. And as luck would have it, I met Dr. Dean and Dr. Jen DePice. And that began one of the first relationships I ever developed within this profession. And one of the ones that is so close to my heart. They are the most humble, kind hearted, amazing people I have ever met. On top of that, if you ever sit in the audience to hear Dr. Dean or Dr. Jen speak, it is uplifting and powerful and encouraging. And it just makes you fall head over heels in love with chiropractic and makes you feel so incredibly grateful to be a part of this profession, which is something that I try to remind myself on those really, really tough days of how incredibly lucky I am that I was brought into this amazing profession, that I get to work with all of you amazing chiropractors and get to meet unbelievable people like Dr. DePice. He's been a chiropractor since 1987. He is incredibly passionate about education. He actually has a background in chemistry and biology, um, which I think is just completely fascinating. He spends a lot of his time, effort, energy, passion helping chiropractors all over the country to build the best practice that they can have, to be incredibly successful, reminding them to be incredibly humble for the experiences that they have every single day with their patients, educating them on everything from documentation and coding, but not forgetting that incredible background of being a business owner at the very same time. And I think it's a combination of all that, which is what makes him so incredibly successful, him and his wife, in what they do, because we share a lot of mutual clients, and I can say they are truly successful. Their heart and their passion and their soul goes into their business and into their patients and into their communities. So, without further ado, Dr. DePice, thank you so much for being here today.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that got recorded, because anytime I'm having a dull day, I'm just going to listen to that introduction over again. Thank you. And I love introductions that have sincere encounters in them. And, that is true. It was early in my road career as well that you and I crossed paths. And it's neat to hear you reflect upon it. So thank you. It's really nice. So, first of all, thank you for being in this building. We just moved into a new world headquarters here at TLC Philadelphia, and we're on the second floor, where on the ground floor is our practice. So, just to put things in perspective, I'm a doctor of chiropractic in full-time practice. I have associates, but I am there full-time. All the clinical hours that we operate, I'm there. Unless I have to fly out of town or do something like this. Our patient hours will be beginning in about 11 minutes, and my associate will be adjusting for the beginning, since I'll be here with you. But I love chiropractic, and I love the hands-on encounter of the front line of why we're in chiropractic. We chose to be doctors of chiropractic, practicing chiropractic, because on some level, the adjustments that doctors of chiropractic render to adjust the subluxations and the entities, whatever your model may be, whether you believe a subluxation is a hard bone on a soft nerve, or you believe it is a meningeal torquing on a different cerebral level, or you believe that it's the inflammatory response, that subluxation is about the biochemical changes and electrical charges in inflammatory tissues sitting around nerve roots, or you believe that it's an alteration in the rate of the saltatory motion, of the leaping of the messages along the nerves. Whatever your model of subluxation is, whether it's primary dorsal nerve root ganglion, we could go on and on and on. Doctors of chiropractic share the common agenda that a nervous system impeded in its ability to communicate from brain to body, and more so from body back to brain, is a source of debilitation and a broken life. And that when you reduce the presence of subluxation, that you enhance the ability of the nervous system to express its life. And so we're here to talk today about documentation, but what I'm really here to talk to you about is the love of being a chiropractic doctor practicing what I love to do most, which is to help people through what I do. That we put no chemicals in and we cut no parts out. And in that, we still affect the lives of our patients to be profoundly more healthy and really the whole world to be better off. So hi, I'm a doctor of chiropractic just like you, and we're here to talk about documentation. So, Lord knows there is no shortage of seminars on documentation. There's no shortage of compliance officers. There's no shortage of healthcare attorneys who help us with documentation and compliance and all of that. So why the heck do you need to hear one more class on documentation? Well, you don't, unless there's something unique to be offered by the presenter. And that is what's going to happen for you here today. And it's not unique in that, oh, here's the latest code. You're always going to get that. There's no shortage of research, of resources out there available to give you the latest update of codings and adaptations and fee structures and so on. What is unique is to remember why we became doctors of chiropractic. Is there anyone out there that said, you know what? I was sold the minute I heard about the new updates in Medicare coverage. You know, I teach all over the world. I teach doctors of chiropractic everywhere. And one of the questions I love to engage our audiences with is to do at least 6, 7, 8 deep of requests from the audience of someone sharing the day, the moment, the time that they remember they chose to become a chiropractor. In fact, you right now would be wise to pause and think, what was the moment I decided? What was the turning point? And, you know, in so many of the stories, maybe not all of them, but in so many of the stories, there are these moments that people say, you know, I saw this guy who was taking care of me living such a beautiful life, and I chose to do that. Heck, I even hear kids say, well, it was the best career decision on the list. And all of the answers I receive have these mighty proclamations in them, even if it's just that I heard it was a good way to earn a good income. But none of them said they chose to become a doctor of chiropractic because they knew they'd be writing documents all day. That's not the reason. That is not why we went to chiropractic school. And in most cases, when I talk to chiropractors who are frustrated, if I ask them to list the top 5 things they're frustrated about, almost every single human being called a chiropractor on earth in some way is going to say, my notes, documentation, I'm behind on documentation. I can't submit my bills because I'm behind on documentation. I don't trust my documentation. I'm scared of my documentation. I think I might get in trouble because of the insufficiencies of my documentation. They hate it. So what the heck are we doing continuing to talk about that until we first address the 900-pound gorilla sitting in the middle of the room, which is most chiropractors hate documentation. So I came up with a funny opening slide. Let me see if I'm able to do this here. Or do you forward the slides for me, Christy? I'm scared to press a button here and maybe set something off.
You should be able to hit next and it'll.
Oh, there we go. Next, I can do that. Ah, beautiful. So here's my breakup on the word. Doc, you meant to enjoy practice, right? So I'm a dad, so I make corny dad jokes, and my kids remind me of that all the time. I have 3 kids, and as each one has grown up, I've grown further and further into appreciating that I'm the one who best laugh at my own jokes because I'm the one who thinks they're funny. So, Doc, you meant to have a great time in practice, didn't you? But doing documentation is not part of it. So why document? I think the biggest thing to talk about is this. And if I had animated these slides for you, I would have withheld from you my 4 answers because I wanted to surprise you on why. Why do you document? All right. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back on it so that you don't stay focused on it. Why do you document? Well, I hope you document for the reasons that are in a book called Are You the Doctor, Doctor by Fred Barge. I believe it's page 82. And it talks about the scar and the blemish you place upon our profession if you're a doctor of chiropractic who doesn't document properly, because the clinical outcomes you render need to be written. The story needs to be defined. If for no other reasons than so often patients forget themselves the things they went through to get where they are. And so often once they're out of pain, it's out of pain, out of mind, right? Out of sight, out of mind. When they're out of pain, they're out of their minds. They go right back to the same senseless and degenerate behaviors that got them into the condition they're in to begin with. But when you have well-written notes, you can tell the story that reminds them of their own story, and every story continues to be embedded in the neurology of the individual. But sometimes you need to awaken that reminder of what's in there by reading what's out here in the notes that you wrote. You need to help your patients with that. How many times have a patient said to you, whatever you did last time was great, and you go back to your notes and you're like, well, I pressed repeat. Not a good idea. So the first reason why I do documentation, and I hope you'll write it down the same as I did, is because on some level, whoever you are, even if you're bland as a doornail and you're as bland as white chalk on a blackboard, whatever your personality is, on some level, I have to believe that what you do with other people is the way that you express love before people. It's love. Of all the 9 fruits of life, it is love that is the most significant. It is love that will conquer all. It is love that when you bestow it upon the hello, when you glance into someone's eyes, will soften their hearts to all the kinds of ways you're going to serve them. It is love. So the first reason I document is because I love my patients and I love being a chiropractor, and I want to continue to be able to serve them with the loving competency of the clinical skill sets that I've bestowed and learned while in school. So it is love. That's why I document. Because sometimes the elegance of rendering love is not as sweet when we forget what the heck it was we did. Number 2 is understanding. So often when I am sitting before people, we forget the first rule of relationships. Seek first to understand before being understood. Seek first to allow others to reveal who they are before you're busy telling them who you are. Seek first to understand. When others feel understood, then there's a chance they can sit and slow down and understand you. When I sit with a new patient on day 1, it's challenging because there's so much that has to get accomplished in that day. And I employ the hands and the blessings of others to help me with understanding patients, because I can't sit and hear everything, but I must hear the most important things. So after I'm clear that the first reason I document is love, the second thing I document is my understandings. So for instance, at the close of day 1, when I finished an exam, a critical part of all my documentation stands on the fact that I need to know what's really in the heart of the patient. So we end day 1 at the completion of orthopedic, neurologic, chiropractic tests, radiographs, and so forth. I then say to the patient, Mrs. Jones, if it ends up we can help you, and if I accept you as a patient, and if you accept me as your doctor, if chiropractic's really able to help you, what do you hope it will most bestow upon your life? What do you hope you'll be able to do again, or do first that you've never been able to do before? What would you love to see come from this? In first knee-jerk reflexes, people will say things like, I want to be out of pain. And I go, of course you do. And every clinical competency I have will be dedicated to helping you to that end. And my experience is, there's things that mean the most to us that are also wrapped up in the things that lie before us as we make choices. So, sometimes I'm sitting with people and their hope is that, they were unable to be there for the lives of their own children in the way they wish they could have, and they hope they're healthy and fit enough to be there for the lives of their grandchildren, to be able to play on the floor and get up and not regret it for the next day. That they would be more present for their own kids. Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's that, I want to be able to enjoy once again, to get back on the dance floor and do the ballroom dance that my wife and I had at our wedding day, and be able to do it again on our anniversary days over and over again. I would love that. And when you and I, as doctors of chiropractic, get to the real issues of the why, the big enough why, then almost any how is doable. Bernie Siegel, the famous oncologist who wrote the books Love, Medicine, and Miracles, Peace, Love, and Healing, and I forget the third one, shared that in his oncological studies, all the evidence-based outcomes he could publish proved that when a patient's heart was wrapped up in the course of how they would start to render the care to address every part of their illness, the patient would always achieve higher ground than those who were given the same clinical competency of care, but their heart was not of hope and faithfulness. So understanding really matters. And when a doctor is clinically excellent, but emotionally vacant, the patients he cares for, their symptoms will run rampant over and over and over again, because the world doesn't hurt because there's lack of information. All the boxes of cigarettes say it's dangerous to smoke cigarettes. We don't need the information as much as we need the heart to want to make the proclamation, to act upon it. Action is the final commodity. And unless people feel loved and they feel understood, action, even if it shows up, will be temporary at best. So when you ask me why I document, I'm incredibly competent. I have a compliance officer that audits my house every year. I am extremely well documented. Yet I do it from the place of knowing why I do it. I do it to love the patient, and I do it to understand the patient. Thirdly, I do it because I always want to feel prepared with the patient. I want to be prepared over the top. I want to show up so prepared that anything that shows up is just entertainment in the course of the day. There are virtually no surprises for me, at least on the things I shouldn't be surprised by. There's always going to be surprises, but you shouldn't be surprised by things you could have been prepared for. I want to be prepared. Every time I start my day in the morning, the very first thing I do is what's called press. I liken it to the analogy that years ago, one of my relatives, who was an ancestor from Italy, used to like to make his own wine. And as a little kid, he had me help him. And one of the things I loved to do was to squeeze the press. And the press was the final stages of rendering the last of the juices from the skins and guts of the grapes that would then be tossed into other uses and whatnot. But the pressing was a big deal. And I understand that every day I want to squeeze the most sweetness out of every day. So every day when I show up, I get there at least half hour to 45 minutes before we unlock the doors. And I look at the schedule and I literally read every patient's name out loud. I make the sound of the patient's name leave my lips, for from the tongue so much is put forth. And may I say their names with sweetness. And I say it, but I don't just say it. Then I put preparatory letters in front of their names to be ready for the day. And sometimes when it's a re-exam time or a re-report time, or perhaps I just remember, Mrs. McGillicuddy, last time I was with her, I was talking about how she really needed to embrace a way to do X, Y, or Z at home that she wasn't getting yet. She wasn't jumping in the game. And I just thought of something. So I write notes next to their name. And then if I'm not sure what it was, if I did good documentation, guess what I can do? Go back to the notes and say, what was it I said to her that I was going to have prepared for her on this appointment? And it's right there. I could give you 1,000 examples where preparation requires great documentation to be carried out. But realize, when I think that I'm documenting because Medicare might hit me over the head, or I think I'm going to do documentation because an insurance audit could get me in trouble, then I'm moving forth from fear rather than to be clear that love is my driving angel. Love is the reason I do what I do. When love drives your why, then infinite and as high as you could want is where you will drive. I want you to have a great big practice. And when people act from avoiding fear, or they act from avoiding pain, and they're mobilized by fear, well, then they're always going to be attracting more things to fear, and peril will be near. It's just how it plays out. If you're constantly watching the news, you're going to constantly be agitating cells in your body that are more akin to growing cancer, more akin to growing heart stress, more akin to growing headaches. You can't watch that stuff if it's not the news anyway. If the news were legitimately clinically accurate, the news would be 99% of everything going on in the universe is a beautiful miracle. And then 1% of the times you got wackos doing what happens when you see these, concentrations of negative reports going on, artificially called the news. So you and I have to be very deliberate. We're scientists. We have to be deliberate at what we feed our bodies, our brains, and let out of our mouths. So number one, I want to love the patient. Number two, I want to understand the patient. Number three, I want to be prepared for the patient. And number four, the last reason I document is to make sure that in all moments I am totally connected to the patient, connected to what matters most to the patient. Now, when I have this much of my reasons why I document, then I don't mind having to be compliant with a few other details. And in fact, once I look at them, I'm going to make sure that those requirements are compliant with my requirements. My requirements require that I'm happy all day. My requirements require that I'm not negatively stressed such that I'm mobilizing myself from fear and avoidance of danger, but the pursuit of joy and happiness. It totally renders a different day for the participant in the process. So when my why is met, if some compliance requirements of a third party payment company seem off their rocker, well then I'm going to call different compliance officers and healthcare attendants and say, what are they really asking for? This can't be right. And if it is that off the course, if it's off the reservation of being clinically competent, then I have to say, okay, how do I deal with this? So for instance, writing notes 30 years ago was very different than what it means to write notes today. I'm unwilling to spend as much time writing notes as I spend caring for people. It could easily happen that way, doesn't it? I mean, sometimes to do proper documentation on certain days where someone had a slip and fall or a flare up or something, it can take a long time. That's not why I went to school. That's not why I became a chiropractor. And that will not be why I go to work during the day. So I've grown my practice always to be competent enough, healthy enough, financially solvent enough that I employ another person who needs employment, whose skills are different than mine, who deserves to be paid, who wants to work in a clinically beautiful environment, who maybe loves chiropractic, to be my scribe. Now, can I do that when I first open my doors in practice if I'm a startup doctor? No. But you can be clear what your intentions are off in the distance. You don't get married saying, well, I don't know, I'll figure out marriage later. No, if you get married, you say, out's not an option. I'll tell you what the 30, 40, 50-year story is. We're still in the game together. That's the vision. So what's your vision of being in practice? It's not to be someone typing notes all day. So stop it. I could do this class today on documentation, compliance, and competency, but can't you get that anywhere? How many times are you in a place like ChiroHealthUSA, this beautiful environment that makes so many things so easy to deal with? This brainchild of Ray Foxworth, served by little angels like Christy walking around, but you're having to deal with this pencil pushing stuff that is not the most inspiring. So for God's sakes, man, grow your life prosperous enough that you're the one who gets to do the things that are inspiring. Be the caregiver with the Scribe shadow texier beside you all day long. That's what I suggest to you. That's how I do it. I make sure that my day is exercised in a way where I can know that my why, these 4 whys, that I love to connect, I love to understand people, I love to be prepared when I serve them, and I love to connect in a way that uplifts them. That's my why. So when I go through this whole course, I know that I'm not documenting for insurance companies. I'm not documenting to be compliant, and I'm not documenting so I get money. Not first. Yes, I want to be paid appropriately and abundantly. Yes, I want to be compliant so I sleep well at night. Yes, I want to honor insurance company and the fact that the invention of insurance was based upon a good moral ambition, not just by the John Hancocks, but even ones before him that said people deserve to have the right for a sense of safety in their moments of peril. Insurance in its birthing thought had good dominion, good objective. But that's not why I do these things first. Not first. So first it is to love. First it is to make sure I understand. First it is to make sure I'm prepared. First it is to make sure that connection is through the roof. The first reasons I do these things are to do the things that matter most to me. There's a saying I know when I teach and coach people all the time is, if someone's why isn't big enough, almost any how, no matter how small, isn't doable. But when someone's why is big enough, they'll do anything. And I give the analogy, if I were a college counselor and I were counseling a class of soon-to-be bachelor graduates. I mean, nowadays, if you get a bachelor degree, you're not really guaranteed a whole lot of employment, are you? You might get employed, you might not. And if you do get employed, it might not have anything to do with the degree you got. So if I were a graduate counselor for a class of bachelor degree graduates, and I said to a class of 50 kids, hey, look, we're going to guarantee you immediate employment once you get out of school. And we're going to guarantee you a $50,000 a year paycheck to start. We're going to guarantee you a minimum 3% annual raise with opportunities for much more if you serve well. We're going to guarantee you healthcare benefits immediately in this job, and we're going to guarantee you 3 years of this employment no matter what. Hands down, do you think most of the kids in the school that you're sitting in your classroom guaranteed 50,000 out of the gates, like without any question asked? Do you think they'd probably say, I'm in? What do you think? Of course they'd say they're in. What if I flipped the story then and I said to these kids, now let me tell you what you got to do. You're going to work a minimum of 40 hours a week doing what I tell you to do. It could be more, but a minimum of 40. And on demand, you will be required to instantaneously stick your hands in and clean human waste. That's what you're going to do. That's your job. But only 40 hours a week, and I'm guaranteeing you 3 years of employment. At that moment, human waste. What are most of the kids in that class then going to revert and do? They're going to, I don't want that job. Forget it. But what if 2 of the kids in the class were husband and wife and I hand them their newborn child? What would they willingly do for the next 3 years but stick their hands in and clean human waste? In fact, I bet you we could even catch them on a video cam singing happy Goo Goo Gaga songs while they were doing it sometimes. What's the difference? When your why is big enough, almost any how is doable. See, if your why is to avoid fear of an audit, if your why is to avoid intimidation of a Medicare situation, if your why is because you got to get more money, well, that why might not be big enough for you to stick your hands in the poopy stuff all day long. But when your why is all these other things, and then you demand to work on how to do it with efficiency, maybe with rubber gloves, maybe with an aide assisting you sometimes, maybe a lot of different things, well, then you're going to work on doing it for the right reasons. And in that, you're going to have, this slide got a little clicked around here. You're going to have common reasons, which are to get paid, get my money, stay out of trouble, and all that stuff. But you're also going to have the clinically superior reasons, which is to do what we teach in TLC, to seek the highest clinical outcomes. You see, chiropractic has never not been evidence-based, right? It was always clinical research was the highest published agenda in our chiropractic profession. Clinical research is research that measures what patients are experiencing as their outcomes. That was always our higher index of published papers. We've always been evidence-based primarily. The challenge is chiropractic as a profession doesn't tend to attract a lot of people that like to write research. So the quantity of evidence-based publications can be greater. Well, let's go down that road. Let's be more evidence-based in terms of what gets written. We can't be more evidence-based in terms of the outcomes. Chiropractic is all evidence-based. The only reason we exist isn't because medicine has loved us. It's not because the movies have continually glamorized the portrayal of us. We exist because when people get adjusted, they say it works. Well, that's evidence. Now we need to publish it better. In terms of your documentation, your skills and competency, legitimacy, and redundancy of documenting well is going to help all of that. And it's the clinically superior reason to document. So how do you raise up a scribe? How do you raise up someone that we call a tech CA that's going to shadow you and do everything with you? Well, it takes years to do it. It really has to be that you are driven to follow through with it. You have to make sure that someone who's raised up to do this is someone that thinks like you, walks like you, breathes like you. All right. So their concerns in terms of the insurance company is, should we really pay this guy? How much longer should we pay this guy? Is it possible that the things this guy's doing are not necessary? They're valid questions that an insurance company should ask. That's their concerns. My concerns are, am I understanding the patient? Am I understanding the objectives of my clinical agenda? The objectives of your clinical agenda need to drive your documentation. The first time I paid for a compliance plan, I was struck to find out that the compliance software they were using had nothing to do with chiropractic. It was from a medical model. So I said, well, where's the questions on what my technique objectives are? And they said, well, that's not in there. And I realized that compliance in the chiropractic world was a bit an abomination when you paid for a compliance manual. The manual, your compliance manual should include what your technique is, what your technique objectives are. How do you know that someone's done with the objectives of achieving that clinical outcome? You have to know all the reasons that chiropractic is honored in the compliance manual that sits in the chambers of your office. So understanding what are the special needs of the patient, what are the objectives of what I'm trying to do for the needs of the patient and for the clinical agendas. All right. So there's my concerns, and there's the third party payment concerns in the competency with which I write notes. And all of these things need to be well laid out. And you better be compliant, and you better know what the right codes are. But you also better make sure you're constantly raising your fees every 3 years or tuning them up based upon the Medicare allowables and the right percentage of adaptation in your zip code. We've got to be up on all these things, and I urge you to definitely be up on all these things, but do it from love. Do it driven by the ambition to be a man or a woman who seeks understanding. Do it because in rendering your skills of adjusting, you are prepared. And do it because in the end, you want ideal connection, patient's brain to body, your pisiforms to their clinical needs, and them to a life that they deserve to live free of drugs and surgery. You know, this week we're sharing research in our practice. Every week I pass out research, and the research I shared this week you might want to share with yours. It's of the study done in Washington State, done by an insurance commission that wanted to understand, you know, that the largest amount of dollars spent in our country on healthcare, which isn't healthcare, it's tragedy intervention, but is on back pains, and particularly chronically occurring low back pain. And so Washington decided to render a study to understand what happens when a like number of low back pain patients begin their journey for care, we won't call it healthcare, by going to a medical route, an allopathic route, versus when they begin their journey by going to see chiropractors. And you can look at the research. It's black and white. The evidence is clear. The clinical outcomes are published and available for you. Something like 48% of the people who begin in the medical route, going down an allopathic, end up with their spines cut open in surgery. When people begin by going to chiropractic care, only 1.5% of them ended up in spinal surgery. Gee, I wonder why that's the case. Because the eyes that filtered the view of what's before them chooses the things we're going to do to them. The eyes of a doctor of chiropractic seeks to do no harm, to inject no chemicals, and to cut no parts out first and foremost. We seek to render a chiropractic adjustment for the removal of the subluxation, or whatever you want to call the interference that has created aberration between brain and body. When an allopath seeks it, no harm intended, nothing personal, but a hammer sees other things as a nail. An allopath sees symptoms as something to kill, cut out, get rid of, or abolish through chemical intervention. That's what they do. Nothing personal, nothing bad. It's just what they do. And God forbid you're paralyzed from a back pain. You've soiled your pants with incontinence because of the nerve damage. Well, then by all means, go to that agenda. But short of that, why the heck would you do that first? Are you making sure that your clinical competencies are this well thought out in your house? So look, if you're going to clean up your issues with documentation, one of the things as a coach, because I coach many hundreds of people at any given time, thousands over my career have utilized the TLC community to train and improve what they do. And one of the first things I realize is the guys and gals who have had struggles with documentation, commonly they have made some problems for themselves. Some of them are behind. I've had people that I'm coaching that were years behind in their documentation. And all they keep living in is the nightmare of their sadness that they're behind. And so they need to make sure that they're going to somehow stop that. And if you're that far behind, you're never going to fix this by trying to catch up. Your efforts to catch up have gotten you where you are. So stop trying to catch up. You need to start today to say, today I'm on schedule. And let someone else help you figure out how to clean up the past until you first clean up right now, this moment, standing in front of you, until you look your daughter or your son in the eye or your spouse or spouse equivalent and say, please forgive me from this day forward. I vow to do this. You start now. You can't fix the past as readily as you could begin to change the present. So what are you going to do different right now? Stop being behind today. Today, whether you do 5 adjustments today or 50 adjustments or whatever, I don't care. What I care is that they are done by the end of the day. And it is improper to believe a daily treatment note needs to be a page long. That's not the truth. If you're writing competent care plans, you can do pointing documentation, which allows efficiencies that any compliance officer or healthcare attorney will validate. If you've written a proper care plan, you're allowed to point to that care plan in your documentation and cut your daily documentation notes in half, only to be updated more competently or thoroughly on the re-exam, re-report times as you point back to the adaptations of that care. There's ways to do it, and we can talk about that. And in terms of the subjective, the whole SOAPS process, the subject, most importantly, subjective, when you're doing documentation, is that the third-party payers want to hear the story of the person's life. And what a great thing it is to build up another employee to be a part of bringing that to life. They feel such joy saying to Mrs. Jones, let me get this right. So you're saying your ability to do this or that has changed. And what a sweet thing for you to show up and find the subjective was already typed in or printed in, or however you do it. And we have plenty of solutions for you. But number one, stop being behind. Number two, start architecting how you're going to not be doing them yourself. All right. And if you say, well, I don't have enough money for that. Okay. Well, start with a morning part-time person, 2 mornings a week that's going to do it 2 times a week, just to begin to show you how you can start to do something like this. Build the life of a scribe. What matters most is make your notes useful. What matters most is knowing your documentation standards. Finish the note in real time. How you're doing it means every day you are never behind. No man or woman who is continually indebted to time and behind on the line can ever feel bright, glorious, and wondrous as they march forward every day. So don't leave things behind unfinished. Have a vision and a plan for how someone else is going to help you. Remember why you became a chiropractor, and it was not to become someone who types notes all day. That's not it. At a glance, your notes should provide an instantaneous understanding of when was this patient's last visit? When was this patient's last re-exam date? When is their next re-exam date? Why do you want to see all this? Because at a glance, you want to know where you are. What do you want to know if you were accidentally nodding off on the road and you wake up and you're like, you look at the road to see where's the double yellow line, where's the white line, who's behind me, who's in front of me. There are parameters you want to observe to make sure there is safety in your life. And that's what your notes should do for you, is to instantaneously, at a glance, put you in state with that patient. When was their last visit? When was their last re-exam? When is their next re-exam? What was the last exercise or home spinal hygiene I went over? What are my special concerns? Is there a blocked vertebra? Was there a fusion surgery at C5 to 7? I'm thinking of somebody I just took care of yesterday. I always remember every time I pop up their notes, bing, it reminds anyone who might touch them. Certainly, I always want to be reminded, C5 to 7, the guy has a surgical fusion in there. So if I try to get C5, 6, and 7 to move more freely, not a good decision. So I want to understand those types of issues. Where are there zones of prolific decay and reasons to not do something else? When was their last spinal workshop? What's the most important thing you hope for your time with your children? That you protect them so that the rest of their life they're never in harm's way? You can't do it. You're not going to be around them all the time. But that you have educated them enough so that they choose the ideal way. That you have educated them, educating them, empowering them, giving them the wisdom to make their own choices someday is the most important thing. With my patients, the most important thing to me is not adjusting their bodies, but adjusting their thinking. Ralph Keeney's research at Duke University proved the leading cause of death is not cancer. It's not heart disease. It's stupidity. It's poorly made choices. So my job as a doctor is to adjust their behaviors and thinking more than just their spine. So I do both. What else should my notes do? They should make sure that the problem issues to address are always right in the forefront. This person came in because of plantar fasciitis and foot issues. Yes, I discovered that 80% of it was related to lower lumbar neurological issues, but we also have that going on. I got to get that clear. At a glance, I should know that. What are their, for me, since I'm more biostructural in nature, I got to see their listings. If you're Thompson or you're Pierce or you're Pettibon or you're Gunstead or you're Toughness or you're Nuka or you're one of the HIOs or you are, oh gosh, I don't know, any of the other techniques out there, well, what are the listings for your type of matter? And what's the statement of desire of the patient? What did they say to you was the thing they hoped they would gain back in life? These are the things I want to see at a glance in my notes. And maybe this page will help you know what should be on your page. These are the things I want popping off of the computer screen now. As I walk to the table, my touch screen's already open. These things are blinking at me as I walk to the table and the patient's there. So this stuff is all filling my instantaneous reflex to be sensitive and understanding and connected and prepared for the person who seeks before me to receive the clinical competency and the love from inside of me. That's what I got to do. And any present special projects that I'm working on with the patient. I have some patients I'm working on getting them back into the gym. One guy, he wants to be a power lifter again. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I have to help him pursue some version of that or his heart will be broken. So what's the special project I'm working on with him? My notes need to bring that to me. So how does your note, the way you do it, serve A, the patient's needs, B, your needs? First and foremost, documentation should serve the patient and the doctor in their relationship, not the insurance company. Not first. Remember how I said that? Don't take my words out of context. You document not for insurance companies, not for third-party reimbursement, not for more money. You document first and foremost for love, for clinical understanding, for personal understanding, for the ability to be prepared and the ability to connect. So, what's on your list? How do your exercises in documentation serve the patient and serve the needs of the caregiver? Now, I don't know that we're going to have an open dialogue here. If we are, I'm going to welcome those questions. But one thing's for sure with me. When people follow up and tap me on the shoulder, as Christy so kindly opened and said in the beginning, Dr. Dean and Jen are just two of the most down-to-earth people. I was like getting goosebumps sitting here. Sometimes people just want to be around seminars and things I teach. Great. Go on the TLC website and look for that. Some people want to get our online services where they can be a part of weekly dialogues like this. We do that all the time. Some people want to really speak privately and personally about how it is that we help steward relationships and coach people and help them find greater accountability or joy in practice. Great. Set up a time to talk to me. We keep a running estimate of the number of chiropractors in the profession that I have sat and had a 1-hour conversation with that I do as a courtesy to help them write their statement of desire. And the numbers right now are tallying over 2,400 different chiropractors have had one, if not several, of these conversations with me. And I've never asked a dime from any of them. I don't need anything from you. What I want for you is to play an outrageous game of chiropractic from you. That you be my sister or my brother that just plays a beautiful game of being who you need to be. All right. And if getting to events helps that, or tapping me on the shoulder for some of our community ways that we help people, great. But just call us, engage us. But most importantly, go back and answer those questions. Why do you document, and how does it serve the patient? And how does it serve you? And then make sure you do that with compliance, and you'll serve the third-party payer. And this better not be the end of the conversation. It really needs to be the beginning. I've been at the adjusting tables now for over 31 years. And as soon as I'm done with this call, I'm going right back there tonight. And I'll be doing my workshop at 6:30 tonight till 7. And I've been at it since 7 a.m. We had a local live doctor training group this morning at 7 a.m. of doctors that come together once a month to just be together. And this is the kind of community building that we're working on, because my wife and I and all because there's not enough community and relationship and interaction between souls that can look out for each other. It's the heart. When your why is big enough, almost any how is doable. And TLC always keeps that in the proper order. Heart first, how second. So Christy, am I supposed to answer questions now? Did I run over? Are we on time? Fill me in.
You are right on time. And if y'all have questions, please submit them now for Dr. Dean, and we will get those answered for you. Do you want to talk about your special offer for the?
Yes, let's see if Dr. Jen's here because she can help me with that. Um, One of the things I make sure I do with everyone is I block out time to work on what's called your statement of desire. Your statement of desire is your ability to write the things that really stir you to step up to your game and be more of what can come from you. So if you call here and set up a time to do that, I'll make sure that you're going to have that phone call. The second thing is September 13th, 14th in Philadelphia. We have a 2-day seminar called the Annual Strategic Planning Seminar. And if you call into TLC headquarters and let them know that you are a part of this conference call with Christy and Ray and the ChiroHealthUSA team, we will waive the entire fee for the weekend for you to be there. All right. So if you're on this phone line and you're a part of this gathering, that's a savings of, I don't know, between $100 and $200 that's being put aside. And you need to let us know that you were on this call, and we'll invite you as a guest to that if you ask to be there. So you have two ways that you can engage us. One is call TLC headquarters 215-657-1701 and ask for Terry or Jamie or Alyssa or any of the folks here and let them know, I want to set up one of those conversations with Dr. Dean. It might take a few weeks or months to get the time put aside, but I will work with you to work on your statement of desire, and I'm really good at it. And in that, we'll then look at what are the pragmatic or problem-solving, informational things you can take from us to walk on that course yourself, all right? Number two, the gathering in September 13th, 14th in Philadelphia. Also, Dr. Irene Gold will be receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award there. There'll be some 24, 22 different teachers teaching that weekend. And it's going to be about laying out the entirety of your 2020 calendar of how to embrace your practice more competently at that event. So those are two ways to engage.
Well, I just have to say, right at the beginning, before we got started today, I had about 15 minutes where I got to catch up with Dr. Dean because we have not seen each other in quite some time since December in Arkansas. And I told him, I said, it's been such a long time since I've got to hear you speak. I was like, my heart needs to be in his classroom because it's been too long. And honestly, I had my webcam off because I'm sitting here in the dark today because I'm dealing with some allergies today. But the whole time y'all could not see me, I was just like, and if you've ever heard me speak, you will see that a lot of inspiration comes from what I have learned from Dr. Dean and Dr. Yen in the almost 10 years that I've been working in chiropractic. A lot of what I say, I heard repeated today, and it just, it just makes my heart sing when I hear you speak. It makes me so happy.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you, Christy. Thank you. Well, with any good blessings, maybe I'll get a seat on one of your listings so that when states are looking for good speakers that ChiroHealthUSA recommends, maybe I'll be on your list and I can do more of the traditional compliance stuff along with these things that help people build why to comply.
I'm going to just be honest. I hope you are never traditional. Can I just say that one of my favorite TLC events of all times, they had set a goal for their coaching clients. And if they achieved this goal, their clients achieved this goal, then Dr. Dean was going to wear one of those morph suits and run through the hotel. And I'm happy to report that he did not disappoint. His enthusiasm is much bigger and grander at a live seminar than it even is on a webinar.
It's funny. I remember that was the first time that Ray was at one of our events, and I'm running through the hallway, and I paused to open the door, and he's standing there. I'm like, boy, this isn't quite the first impression I was thinking of, but
it is one that makes a lasting first impression, and I'm going to tell you what, knock the socks off. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we have a question. One of our attendees, Dr. F, says, hey, I love your purpose. Does TLC have a system to help with Scribe training?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, one of our 4 cornerstones, the third one is called TDP. It's the team-driven practice. And in that, we have an entire zone training kit for the tech, what we call the Tech CA. The category that a Scribe falls under is the Tech CA. And so, yes, there's plenty of tools for that. If you reach out to me or call me, I will help connect you with what we do for that.
Well, and two, I do want to share this. I'm going to hit the little publish button so y'all will see this. They have a Speak Out Revolution monthly subscription. Dr. Jen and Charmaine, did I mention that everybody who works there is absolutely amazing?
Keep going, sister.
I mean, honestly, I get to work with so many great people in the profession. It's very rare that I get to work with somebody who's just not fabulous, but they take it to a whole new level at TLC. Like they really give you the TLC, which might be why
you got to come see our headquarters. My wife is the one helping with the architects to design the functionality of the spaces, and it's given Google a run for its money the way she's tooling all the ways that people connect with each other at work here. And thank you for pointing that out. Everybody's
you know what? On my next trip to go visit my Philly family, I am totally going to do that because I don't know if all of y'all know this, but I have a slight, tiny, mild obsession with Google. In fact, I made Dr. Ray Foxworth take me to Google when we were in San Francisco for another conference a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Which I begged him to take me to begin with because Tony Robbins was speaking.
That's great.
But you can take advantage of the Speak Out Revolution monthly subscription. They're offering a $20, a 2-month trial for $20.
It's kind of silly, huh? Yes, that's a whole nother tool for rendering patient education with a competency where every month I give the people, I mean, you don't have to be in TLC to get any of this stuff, but I send them a stick. And in the stick is a video of me doing the sessions for my patients. In the stick is a rendering of me teaching you in a removed classroom setting how to render the education to your patients. And then there is the fully animated and published PowerPoint presentation for that subject, whether it's the opioid crisis and the research data. And then separately, there's a file with all the footnoted research that wrote it. And we do that every month for everybody in the profession who gets it. And I think it's a $35 a month subscription, $45, whatever it is. But you can get the first 2 months for $20. It's pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy. You should definitely check it out. Definitely take advantage of it. Because, I mean, who doesn't want to test drive just to see how amazing it is? But basically, it is like everything you need at your fingertips. So check it out. All you have to do is click that Try It Today. It'll take you to the landing page so you can sign up. Take advantage of that $20.
You're just sitting on our website right now, aren't you?
Yeah. I love your website. I go on there all the time. I also send them all the link to the chat feature of all of your upcoming events for this fall.
Thank you.
Also the link to the website itself, because did I mention they were amazing? So I'm a big fan. Truthfully, you can't get to speak on this webinar series if I'm not a big fan, but there are some people that I might be just like a raving fan of. Obviously, Dr. Dean, since most of y'all join me week to week, know I love some people, apparently a lot more than others. And so TLC, Dr. Dean, Dr. Jen DePice, they are right up there at the very top of my list. Obviously, they made a very big impression on a little girl who didn't know anything about chiropractic. And Dr. Ray Foxworth entrusted her to go out into the world.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you. And, it's a blessing when there are those who help us do what we do in chiropractic. We truly love it. So this is sweet for me to get to share time with you. Thank you, Christy.
Well, thank you so much, because I know how busy you are. And like I said, I was over the moon. I have been counting the days to this webinar. Like I said, it's such a joy to work with everybody on your team. And obviously, we're going to make it work out so that I get to see you very soon, though. And
I would love that.
Because I sure do miss y'all. So everybody, here's what we're going to do. If you know the deal, this webinar was recorded, which means you should share it with everybody on your team, because, again, it's uplifting. Nobody really likes to talk about documentation. But then when you talk about it and you hear it from a totally different perspective, from a place of love and connection, being prepared, and all of those things, it kind of takes the sting out of the documentation to begin with, and it gives you a whole new purpose in which to address it. in your practice. So share it with your associate doctors. Share it with your CAs if they're doing the scribing for you and helping you input those notes. Because we want them to come from a place of love too while they're doing that.
Mm,
So watch it. It's going to be available forever because
thank
I'm
you.
all about it. If you have questions for Dr. Dean that you think of after today's webinar, all you have to do is send me an email and I will forward it to the amazing ladies and gentlemen who work behind the scenes at TLC for Super Teams, and they will make sure that Dr. Dean gets those, answers those, and gets right back to you. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you're watching this on a recording, like so many of you do, and you have questions and miss the live Q&A, same thing. All you have to do is email Christy at ChiroHealthUSA.com, and I will get that over to Dr. Dean and his team, and we'll get those answered. So next week, we're going to have Dr. Evan William here to talk about confusing codes for chiropractors, and specifically, we're going to be talking about 97110 versus 97112 versus 97530. So that should be a whole lot of fun. I know y'all are kind of laughing, going, what? But it will be. Evan's a lot of fun. So check it out. If you haven't registered, register now. You can do so at ChiroHealthUSA.com/webinars. And we will see you all next week at the same time, same place. I hope you have the most amazing week ever because you truly deserve it. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye bye.